Let me be straight with you right off the top. The Blue Jays are in a tough spot right now. Not a panic spot, not a season is over spot, but a genuine, uncomfortable, what are we doing here spot that deserves an honest conversation. Eric Lauer is gone. The rotation has a hole in it. The injury list looks like a hospital waiting room. And the front office is out there trying to figure out how to keep this thing afloat while half the pitching staff they planned on using is either rehabbing or visiting specialists. That is where we are. And there is a lot to get through today on Blue Jays Focus. So let's not waste any time. Lauer getting designated for assignment. Look, it was coming. Anyone who watched him pitch this year knew it was coming. A 6.69 ERA. A fastball that has been sitting at 90 miles per hour, which for a guy who was never a power pitcher to begin with, is genuinely alarming. His strikeout rate cratered, his walk rate climbed, and on top of all the performance stuff, he kept going public with his frustrations about his role, about the organization, about whatever was bothering him that week. Now, I'm not going to pile on Eric Lauer the person. He was a real piece of what this team did last year. He ate innings in the postseason. He contributed. But this version of Eric Lauer in 2026 was not helping this baseball team win games. The dynamic between him and the front office had gotten weird enough that keeping him around was doing more harm than good. So they moved on. It stings a little, but it was the right call. The problem is what comes next. Because now you are sitting there with Gausman, Cease, Yesevich, and Corbin as your 4 rotation options, and you have got a 5th spot that needs to be filled before this next series gets going. And the options on the table are not exactly inspiring. John Schneider mentioned Spencer Miles, Chad Dallas, and C.J. Van Eyck as internal candidates. He also acknowledged that the team is exploring outside the organization. And that is where this gets interesting, because Mitch Bannon of The Athletic just dropped a report that points pretty directly at who that external option might be. The name is Chris Paddock, and before you close the video, stay with me here, because the context matters a lot. Bannon was clear about something important. He said, do not expect a blockbuster move. This is early May. Teams with legitimate starting pitchers are not trading them right now. Nobody is blowing up their rotation in the first week of May to send an ace to Toronto. So when you hear Chris Paddock, you have to understand what that conversation actually is. It is not the Blue Jays trying to go get a difference maker. It is the Blue Jays trying to find someone who can give them 5 innings every 5 days while they wait for the guys who actually matter to get healthy. So who is Paddock? He is 30 years old. He's been around for 8 years. Back in 2019 with the Padres, he was genuinely one of the most exciting young pitchers in baseball. 3.33 ERA, 140 innings, legitimate ace caliber stuff. He was the real deal that year. Then the injuries came. UCL issues. A second Tommy John surgery with Minnesota in 2022. A forearm strain that wiped out part of his 2024. The guy just could not stay healthy long enough to rebuild what he had as a rookie. This year with Miami was rough. 7.63 ERA in 7 starts, getting knocked around, and the Marlins cut him loose and handed his rotation spot to a prospect. He is now a free agent, available to whoever wants him. And here's the key thing. Miami still owes him most of his $4 million salary. Any team that signs him pays him the prorated league minimum and nothing else. The financial risk is basically zero. Now, is the 7.63 ERA scary? Yeah, of course it is. But here's what the numbers underneath that ERA actually show. His walk rate was solid. His command, which has always been his best attribute, was not completely gone. Some of the damage he gave up was a product of terrible strand rate and some genuinely bad luck on balls in play. Does that mean he's going to come in here and suddenly look like a different pitcher? No, probably not. But it does mean the ERA overstates how bad things actually were, and there is at least an argument that a change of scenery and a low-pressure situation could help him settle in. The real reason Bannon linked him to Toronto has nothing to do with upside. It has to do with availability. Paddock is stretched out. He's been starting games all year. He can throw 5 innings, maybe 6. And for a Blue Jays team that is desperately trying to protect a bullpen that has been working overtime because of all the starting pitcher attrition, that workload matters. This is not about finding a good pitcher. This is about finding a pitcher who can eat innings and keep the game within reach long enough for the bullpen to close it out. That is the entire job description right now. Think about what they did with Patrick Corbin earlier this season. Everyone raised an eyebrow at that signing. Corbin had been one of the worst starters in baseball for years running. But Toronto needed someone who was stretched out, experienced, and available immediately, and Corbin fit to that profile. The Paddock situation is the exact same calculation. Sign him cheap, give him a couple turns through the rotation, and the moment Bieber or Berrios is ready to come back, you DFA him and move on. Simple as that. The risk is minimal because the investment is minimal. Could they go with Spencer Miles instead? Honestly, yes, and I would not hate that decision. Miles has been legitimately impressive this year. A 3.00 ERA, solid multi-inning work. He stepped in as an opener and held his own. The guy has earned an opportunity. The hesitation is that he had never pitched above single A before this season, and there's a real question about how much workload you want to throw at him this early in his development. The Blue Jays are going to need Miles for a long time. Using him up in May, patching a rotation hole, is a risk worth weighing carefully. Chad Dallas and C.J. Van Eyck have both been pitching well in AAA, and there's a reasonable case for bringing one of them up and letting them take their shot. These are legitimate pitching prospects. But again, it comes down to how the organization views the timing of their development, and whether now is the moment to put them in a situation where the pressure is high and the supporting cast behind them is somewhat compromised. The front office is going to make a decision here in the next few days. Whatever they decide, the reasoning will come back to one question. What gives this team the best chance to win games right now while protecting their long-term assets? Paddock is probably the answer, even if it is an unsatisfying one. Now let's talk about the injuries, because there is a lot here, and some of it is genuinely hard to sit with. Addison Barger is back on the injured list, and that one hurts, because he just came back. He missed over a month with ankle issues after getting hurt running out a grounder on April 5th. He played one game, before his right elbow flared up with a joint inflammation. He got a cortisone shot. He is shut down 3 to 4 days, and there is no structural damage, so the hope is that this is a short stint. But come on, this kid cannot catch a break. Barger was one of the most exciting stories of the 2025 postseason. He came into this year with real momentum and a real role on this team, and he has spent almost the entire season on the shelf. When he does come back healthy, and he will, he is going to have a massive chip on his shoulder. Right now, though, it is just another name added to an already brutal injury list. Yohendrick Piniango comes back up to take his roster spot, which honestly makes sense. Piniango hit .423 in his first big league stint this year and showed real contact skills and a good approach at the plate. He deserves more time up here, and now he is going to get it. Shane Bieber threw a live bullpen session today, 1 inning. And I know that sounds like a small thing, but given where Bieber has been, 60-day IL, Tommy John recovery complications, setback after setback, a live bullpen session is genuinely meaningful progress. This team needs Bieber back in the worst way. Not just because of what he brings statistically, but because of what he does to the entire complexion of the rotation. When Bieber is healthy and pitching, he is a legitimate number 2 starter on most teams in baseball. Getting him back by late May, which is still the target, would change everything for this pitching staff. Every step he takes in the right direction matters. Alejandro Kirk has started throwing and swinging as part of his thumb recovery. The surgery happened in early April, and the 6-week timeline puts his potential return somewhere in mid to late May. Brandon Valenzuela has done a decent job holding down the position, and I give him credit for that. But Kirk is a different level. His pitch framing alone changes how the pitching staff operates behind the plate, and his bat adds a dimension to the lineup that nobody currently available can replicate. Getting him back is critical. Max Scherzer got a cortisone shot in his right thumb, while he is already on the IL with forearm tendinitis. Schneider described it as handling 2 things at once while he is already out. At 41 years old, with 31 starts total over the last 3 seasons, you have to be honest with yourself about what Max Scherzer's 2026 is probably going to look like. He might pitch again. He might be genuinely useful if he does. But counting on him as a rotation piece at this point carries real risk, and the front office knows that. You hold out hope, but you plan for the alternative. Jose Barrios consulting with Dr. Keith Meister is the update that worries me the most out of everything we covered today. Meister is an elbow specialist. He is the guy pitchers go see when the elbow situation is serious enough to warrant that level of expertise. The Blue Jays have not confirmed Tommy John surgery, and there are scenarios where Barrios avoids it. But a stress fracture that sends you to Dr. Meister is not a minor thing. If Barrios needs surgery, his 2026 season is over. And you are talking about a guy who was supposed to anchor this rotation alongside Gausman. That would be the most significant loss this team has absorbed in what has already been an historically difficult injury year. Yimi Garcia's rehab took a step back. His first appearance in the Florida Complex League ended with him feeling more soreness than expected, and the Blue Jays pushed back his next outing to let him recover. They are not panicking about it. They believe it is not a serious setback. But Garcia has not pitched at the major league level since July of last year, and every delay pushes that return date further out. He is a late-inning weapon when he is right. This team needs him, but they cannot afford to rush a guy who just had elbow surgery and is clearly still working through the recovery process. Nathan Lukes is running drills as he comes back from a hamstring strain, which is at least something moving in a positive direction. Now, and this is important, let's talk about what actually went well yesterday. because I think in the frustration of a loss, it is easy to miss some genuinely good signs. Yariel Rodriguez was impressive out of the bullpen. This is a guy who was not even on the 40-man roster at the start of the year, who had to earn his way back through AAA, and who showed up throwing mid-90s with real swing-and-miss stuff. 25 strikeouts in 13 innings before he got called up. The velocity is there, the confidence is there, and he looked completely comfortable, pitching in a big league game last night. Joe Mantiply has been a quiet constant in this bullpen all year. He is not flashy. He does not light up radar guns, but he gets outs, he keeps the ball in the park, and he has been one of the most reliable arms John Schneider has had to work with this season. Gausman, though, 6 runs in 4 2/3 innings is not what you need from your number one starter. This is now a stretch of starts where Gausman has looked like a different pitcher than the one who was so dominant over the last 2 years. Whether it is mechanical, whether it is fatigue, whether it is something the coaching staff needs to address, that conversation needs to happen internally, and it needs to happen soon. Because if Gausman is not right, the rest of this pitching situation gets significantly harder to manage. The offense has been the elephant in the room for a while now, and it is still very much in the room. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has been struggling in a way that is difficult to watch. George Springer is still finding his rhythm after coming back from injury. These are 2 of the 3 or 4 most important bats in this lineup, and they have been below expectations for the better part of a month. Andres Jimenez hit 2 home runs yesterday, and his OPS is climbing toward .700. Genuinely exciting to see, and there is a real sense that whatever hampered him last year physically has cleared up, and he is starting to hit like the player we know he can be. But you cannot win games in the AL East running one hot bat out there while your top 2 hitters are cooling off. This team has the talent to turn it around. Nobody in that clubhouse has forgotten what they accomplished last October. The core is still here, the belief is still there, but belief does not get you back to .500, results do. And right now, the results have not been matching the expectations that came with being the reigning American League champions. They need to figure out the 5th starter situation. They need Bieber back. They need Guerrero and Springer to rediscover their swings. They need Barger healthy. They need Berrios to get good news from his specialist. That is a long list of things that all need to break right for this team to get where they want to go. But baseball is a long season, and May is not October. The Blue Jays are going to be okay. They just need time, health, and maybe a guy with a 7.63 ERA who can eat 5 innings while everyone waits. Drop your thoughts in the comments. The Blue Jays Focus community always brings the real conversation, and right now there's plenty to talk about. Subscribe if you have not already. This rotation situation is going to keep developing, and you are not going to want to miss any of it.